Hey everybody, Dr. Shook here. Hope you are doing well today. I wanted to take a second to talk about a case that I had in the office today and a trend that I'm starting to see a lot. So it's really interesting when working with people that have autoimmune conditions, and in particular when they have symptoms of hormone dysfunction. And if you followed me, I don't want to go through the full explanation of this, but every hormone in the body goes through 4 different phases. I mean, the physiology for your body to use a hormone, the hormone has to work efficiently through 4 different phases, right? There's production of the hormone, so you have to have enough in circulation, and then you have to have good transportation of the hormone through the circulatory system via proteins, little proteins that carry it. And then you have to have sensitivity to the hormone at your cells. And then the hormone has to be broken down, detoxified, eliminated, or biotransformed. Okay. So with when I'm working with someone to try and get them as systemically healthy as possible and support their adaptive biochemistry, to improve immune system regulatory function, to try and do our best to dampen the immune response if they have autoimmunity, to try and improve cellular sensitivity, to try to just get them healthy. We're just working with improving their systemic health. Diet is always a component of that. And so I've been noticing, I'll tell you about this case in a second, but I've been seeing a lot in practice where, hey Lori, hey Stacy, I've been seeing a lot in practice where people are coming in, and it used to be even 5 years ago that people would come in and they wouldn't have made as many dietary changes. They might have 5 years ago, they may have cut out gluten or something like that, right? They've eliminated something from their diet, like wheat. And now what I'm seeing is people come in and they have eliminated all kinds of stuff from their diet, and sometimes for years, and they still don't feel well. And when they try to reintroduce foods, they have problems with the foods that they're reintroducing. And this is an issue. This is a problem, because now I'm having to get people to put stuff back into their diet, because what's happening is when the less diversity you have in your diet, okay, so the fewer things that you eat, the less diversity you have of gut bacteria. Okay, that's not a good thing. You need to have a diverse microbiome or bacterial. The environment in the GI tract needs to be rich with diversity of gut bacteria. Okay, it's really important to have diverse gut bacteria. And what happens when you eliminate everything from your diet, all these food groups from your diet, and you restrict it to just a few things, you restrict and you change the GI tract bacteria significantly. And then if you try to introduce foods again or reintroduce foods, a lot of times you won't have good oral tolerance to those foods. Now, everyone's going to be a little bit different, but oral tolerance just means when you eat it, you have an immunological response to it. And most of the time, you know it, like you feel bloated or you have a lot of digestive issues. So people eliminate everything, and they tend to feel better at first, right? Because typically immunological triggers are, like proteins in foods, are removed. A lot of them are removed when you're on a restrictive diet. So let's say someone goes on like a keto diet, which was, a case I had today. That's something I suspect in this case, right? And I suspect that I suspect that there's loss of diversity in the gut bacteria, and when my client tries to eat a new food, they have more GI tract symptoms. But there's also this fear of gaining weight when you're on keto and eating carbs again. And this is something that's a real issue as well, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But first, let me talk about this eliminating all these foods from your diet. It can be elimination diets, or diets that eliminate some foods and food groups. So certain things, like if you were to eliminate nightshades, for example, from your diet, that tends to be a very helpful group of vegetables to eliminate. Well, I guess they're not all considered vegetables, right? A tomato's not, but is a nightshade. So you remove these from your diet, and they tend to remove a lot of lectins and potentially immunologically reactive proteins from the diet. And at least doing that temporarily tends to be something that can have a real significant positive impact on someone's health. But if you remove everything and you just consuming, let's say you're just consuming meat and maybe you're on keto and you're still consuming dairy and you've got high fat dairy, and then you have maybe you're eating avocados and some oils, lots of coconut oil, stuff like that, and you're all high fat, right? It's high fat, but you don't have nearly as many vegetables. And it's not that you can't do it with vegetables. You can add vegetables in. But the problem with it is there's a lot of times restricting all of these foods for forever and not having a strategy out of that can be a problem, because you lose diversity of the gut bacteria. And then when you try to eat foods that require a diverse GI tract or microbiome for metabolism of the fibers in the foods, of the sugars or carbohydrates in the foods, you bloat and you have a lot of gut related issues. That's a real problem. I'm seeing that a lot more now. People have eliminated things for so long, and then they have lost this diversity of gut bacteria. Now, this has a lot of potentially has systemic impacts as well, because your microbiome, the bacteria in your gut, has a metabolome. Okay, that means it actually breaks down. It has its own detoxification, its own role in detoxification pathways. It produces vitamins. It produces things called short chain fatty acids like butyrate that help the GI tract to repair and heal itself. Really critical things for a healthy gut. And this you can lose a lot of that. So this is something well, how do we rebuild it? Well, I'll tell you. It's the best strategy is not just like taking a bunch of probiotics. I don't think you're going to do it that way. The best strategy is to change the diet and increase diversity of the foods that you're eating. Plant-based fibers tend to be the best thing to start changing that GI tract bacteria. And so taking like some kale and maybe some celery. Really, any kind of leafy greens are really great for this. Maybe a little bit of spinach. Just depends on the person, but you can even use, if you don't have a problem with like chia, a little bit of chia seed. You can mix these things in, blend them, and just like have like 8 ounces of this blended together. Obviously you add water to it as a base or something, and then you just drink that. You don't have to have a large quantity. It doesn't even have to be really 8 ounces every day, just once a day, every day, or if you can do it like twice a day. And you might notice some changes with gas and some things happening at first because the gut bacteria are changing, but it will change within a few days. You'll start making really significant impacts and changes within a few days. And this can be very helpful. And in a lot of cases, this is going to be essential. And then, from my perspective, when I'm working with someone and we suspect this is occurring, we might add in a probiotic, but I'm really going to be focusing on things like vitamin A to help with the mucosal lining and helping them to regain that oral tolerance and repair the lining of the gut. I'll be focusing on maybe supplementing them with butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid that these bacteria often make and that are typically not there. Now, if we do diagnostic testing, if we had like a stool panel, we would have a lot more insight into what's actually going on in the gut, and you can look at butyrate levels, but you can get a better idea of what's happening. You have a baseline. That's the ideal way to do it, is to have some diagnostic testing first to give you guidance. And then I might make sure vitamin D levels are optimal, and that might be a reasonable strategy right there. Just having them not even really change their diet more than just to add these fibers in, right? So if they're on a restrictive diet of some sort, we start building up this gut bacteria for a month or so, and then maybe we try to introduce some other foods. And then this is another challenge that comes in with this, because like a lot of people, have really gotten on the ketogenic diet trends and they've lost a lot of weight. And I think I don't have any problems with the ketogenic diet. I do, however, have the problems with any diet, period. And when I say I use the word diet, it just communicates the concept to you. That's why I say diet. But a way of eating, a lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I refer to like what I eat as a diet, but I'm not on a diet. I don't think of it as like restricting eating for this period of time. So you just have to like, some people have diets like a bad word, and just it's just how you perceive it. Like it's your perception of the word. That's not how I look at it. I don't look at it as like a short-term thing. I actually look at it as a way of living. And it's important to understand that when someone is on like a ketogenic diet, most of the time they go on these diets, most of the time. Now, there's a lot of different reasons. I've worked with people that have mild cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, and ketogenic diets. If someone has a neurodegenerative condition, it's hard to argue the benefits there. That it's very anti-inflammatory. I mean, you have to look at each person, from a unique perspective. There are a lot of different options that they may be able to choose from, or that may be more appropriate for them than just a ketogenic diet. But the ketogenic diet and higher ketones can be really helpful for the brain and can be anti-inflammatory. So neurodegenerative conditions, that would be more preferable, at least for a period of time. I still am not sure. It depends on the person, how old they are, what all is going on the way that you might approach it long term. Like, do you keep them on that diet forever? But the average person, typically that that I work with, most of the time I work with people that have thyroid problems, and these people are typically struggling with weight, the body weight. Okay, so they have problems with their thyroid, and a lot of them either know they have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition, or they think they have Hashimoto's, right? But most of them are hypothyroid. Most of them have Hashimoto's, okay? And they're trying to figure out ways to lose weight. And everyone talks about it. You hear it, you see it on social media, and it's like the next best thing, right? It has been for years. And so people start these diets, and they start losing weight pretty quickly. Typically, they lose weight quickly in the beginning because they deplete their stored blood sugar it's stored in your muscles and your liver. So when you store sugar in your body, you retain water with it. Okay, glycogen, which is the stored form of your blood sugar. Right? Glucose is the sugar in the bloodstream. Glycogen is the stored form of the sugar, and it's stored in the muscle and the liver primarily, but mainly your skeletal muscles. Okay, so when you go on a ketogenic diet and you stop consuming carbs, your body, before it goes into ketosis and starts making ketones, it's going to deplete that stored glycogen or sugar from the muscle and liver, at least to a great extent. And as it does that, you lose water pretty quickly. And as you lose water, you lose weight pretty quickly, right? Then you get into ketosis, and then your body will start shifting and burning more fat for energy. But the initial gains, the initial loss, is typically due to a loss of water, okay? Now, here's the reverse of this. When you eventually, these people hit a plateau. They typically hit a plateau where they're not making any more changes, and they're doing the same thing they were doing before, but it's not working. Okay, this is normal with any diet, any dietary approach that you follow. Okay, the one thing that you need to understand as a concept is that all diets need to vary. Period. Just get that in your head right now. Let that sink in. All diets need to vary. Okay. All diets need to vary. If you want to be successful at maintaining body weight or getting more fit or adding muscle mass and functionality. So people that watch me are from huge spectrum of starting points. Some people are in terrible shape and can barely walk. They're very fatigued. They are on the spectrum of health. They're not doing very well. Okay. Some people that I work with are actually trying to optimize their health, and they're actually really healthy, but they're trying to get as healthy as possible. Okay. So they're on the other end of the spectrum. So, it's important to understand that variation in your diet, though, is important for both of those people. Like so most people are going to change their diet. They're going to stay with it, and let's say ketogenic, stay with that concept. following a ketogenic diet, they're going to lose weight and they're going to hit a plateau, and then nothing's changing. Nothing's get there. They can't, it's not budging. It's because the body will get very efficient at using it will meet the metabolic demands that you place upon it. So if you restrict your calories, or you're eating nothing but, let's say you're eating, like 20% protein, 5% carbs, and then you're like 75% fats or something, right? And so you're following this percentage approach with your ketogenic diet, and you hit a wall where you're not losing any more weight. Your body will just adapt to it. It'll be its new metabolic rate. So to break through that and to change that, you have to either, typically you would say, all right, we're going to, if I'm trying to lean down more, I would cut carbohydrates. Okay. Typically I would cut some carbohydrates. Typically with me personally, I'll cut 125 grams of carbohydrates, which is 500 calories. Okay. And then I'll stair step and use my carbs to adjust my weight. And so I think it's a bad idea to not have an exit strategy for a ketogenic diet, and not plan to increase your carbs again. Okay, to vary the diet. So here's the thing: people will then say, "Well, okay, I want to go off the ketogenic diet," or let me finish the concept so you can see kind of like the whole picture. So for me personally, what I do is I follow a 1-year pattern of what I call a periodization. It's a planned dietary change or variation. So, and I've said this before, but like the last 6 months of the year, so pretty soon, September, I'll probably go like September to December, maybe January, where I'll eat higher carbohydrates. And so it's important to look at this not just from a dietary perspective, right? If you're gonna, you need to be exercising. And everyone, like I said, I work with a huge spectrum of people, right? A huge spectrum of people. If you're really unhealthy and you can, it's hard just, you're walking, your exercise is basically walking, or if even that, then you're going to have a different starting point. But you have to focus on moving your body. You can build up and increase your endurance, your strength, your capacity to do work, your fitness level. But it takes work for anyone at any stage in their health. It just can be, the perception and the difficulties can be a little bit harder, or maybe even a lot harder when you're not as healthy. Okay. So, but you have to exercise. You have to exercise. You need to put that into your daily routine and just make it part of who you are. Okay, these shortcuts and these ideas that I look at it when someone's like, I don't have time for exercise, or I can't exercise. It's like, look, man, all you need is like really 20 minutes. Okay, I mean, ideally, I'd prefer a little bit longer than that for someone, but you need about 20 minutes. You have to figure out if you don't help yourself, how can you help anyone else? Okay, it's really important. Like, it's just, we can all come up with excuses why we don't do things, but in the end, how do you actually help anyone else in your life and actually reach your life goals? By sacrificing yourself some way. Makes no sense. Not when you really think it through. So you have to build in time for yourself. This is something that I've made the mistake too. So I'm not sitting here, on my high horse and trying to lecture you about all of the things that I do right and you do wrong. I've suffered through, and I've had to figure this stuff out on my own too. Okay. And I've known better, and I have not exercised because I put other things that I thought were more important first. And when you break your body down enough and you hit a low enough point, you just, you reach a point where you have to figure out what to do. And hopefully you have the right people around you, or the right influences, or influence someone, maybe just even watching like a video like this, where you can reflect and say, I can't do this. I've got to figure out a different way. And listen, it doesn't have to be that hard. but you need to make that part of your daily routine. So like exercise needs to be part of your daily routine. And I say this as I'm getting ready to tell you about increasing carbohydrates and using carbohydrates in your diet. And by the way, this is my opinion. This is not like you may disagree with this completely, and that's okay. I'm fine like with not having the same opinion as everyone else, or you having a different opinion. And I'm not like, I don't dislike you if you have a different opinion than me. Okay. So, I'm not here to argue about it. I just want to share with you like what scientifically makes the most sense, and also what I've just observed helps me the most and will help to fix a lot of these problems with people yo-yo dieting and not understanding how to actually control their metabolism and their body weight. Okay. So you typically, like for me, I vary my diet over a 12-month period. Basically, let's just break it up. So the last 6 months of the year, I'll eat higher carbohydrates. I'll change my exercise routines to focus on more trying to increase the amount of lean muscle that I have, like increasing muscle. Now, this is important, not just for someone that just wants to look better. This doesn't even have to be about looks at all. Most of the time it's not. This is really about function. Do you know that you are more likely, like one of the tests to know if you are more likely to die is, can you get up off the floor? Okay. If you fall down or you lay down in the floor, can you get up? Can you get up? Because you're more likely to die if you can't. That's one of the known risk factors that make you significantly more likely to be closer to death. And it has a lot to do with factors like sarcopenia, just like low muscle mass, no strength, right? So when I talk about incorporating exercise into your life, we're not just talking about today or next year. We're talking about like longevity. Are you going to be able to be, old if we're fortunate enough to make it to, to being old, like, over like 75, 80, 85, 90, we get old, significantly older, right? The work that you do now carries over significantly then, okay? And if you don't stop and you can continue to condition your body, you're going to have a better chance of living longer and a more vibrant life with a better quality of life. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like just being like a bodybuilder or something, though you could do that if you wanted to. Nothing wrong with that. You could be a lot more, you could add more muscle and you could focus on performance. You could focus on, which is what I love to do, but you can apply these concepts to any place, wherever you are in the spectrum of health, right? Really, really poor health, or you're a world-class athlete. It all applies. So the last 6 months of the year, I'll eat higher carbohydrates. I'll focus on increasing muscle mass. Then I'll primarily change my workout routine. And it changes about every 6 weeks anyway, my workout routine. But the generalized goals are about the same the last 6 months. And then the first 6 months of the year, so January, so say July through July or so, I'll focus on lower carbohydrates and tapering carbohydrates so that when I get to the summer, I might be in ketosis throughout the summer because I'm going to have lower carbohydrates. My workout routine will be different, but the entire time my diet is varying intentionally. It's varying intentionally. And so here's important. Like, you don't have to follow the concept that I just told you, but what you do want to consider is the fact that, okay, like, so if I was in ketosis this year, I've been in ketosis this year. I'm not in ketosis right now. I'm starting to transition out of that, but I have been in ketosis this year. And if, there's different reasons you might go into ketosis. I've already talked about like neurodegenerative conditions, different types of health conditions. It's a different ball game in there. That's going to be unique situations that you want to try to understand what might be the best strategy in varying the diet, if that's appropriate or not. But for the general person that I work with, they are trying to have better hormone physiology, dampen autoimmunity, lose weight, have energy again, think clearly, and just get to some place of normalcy. And then, ideally we want to go beyond that. We want to get as healthy as possible. We don't just want to like be okay again, which a lot of people would take just feeling okay. but we want to try to get as healthy as possible. So varying the diet sets you free. Now, here's the thing: when someone comes out of ketosis, right? So they're in a ketogenic diet. You're like, okay, I'm not budging. And it can be frustrating too, right? The reason it can be frustrating when you're on a ketogenic diet, and I'll tell you this: the reason that I like eating more carbohydrates in the last like 6 months of the year is because I'll enjoy in holidays. I'll partake in holidays and I'll eat more carbohydrates and things that are more seasonal, and it's just more enjoyable. So, so when someone's coming out of ketosis, though, they're like so worried they're going to gain weight, right? They're super worried, like I'm going to gain my weight back, and I get the anxiety there. The thing is, you are going to gain some weight. You're absolutely going to gain weight. Now, why would you gain weight? Why would you gain weight right away? Let's say we added in 125 grams of carbohydrates. Okay, so you really need to measure this. You really need to measure this. It's not hard to do. Okay, it's really not hard to do. There's so many apps, and there's books. I mean, if you don't have a smartphone, but the best way to do it, the easiest way is using applications on a smartphone and tracking like I like to track macronutrients, but typically you want to add about 125 grams of carbohydrates. I have a whole formula that I use to try and determine the starting point, but let's just say coming out of ketosis, you're going to add about 125 grams of carbohydrates, and you're going to be exercising, right? So you need to exercise. You can't like not exercise. Nothing. I don't think there's anything that really works well. I don't think you can have vibrant health if you don't focus on exercise and movement as one component of that. Okay, I'm just going to tell you. Now, a lot of times when I work with people one-on-one, I don't have them exercise at all for like a month or two. I'm getting them more metabolically healthy and ready to take on stresses of exercise so they feel better, right? So just understand that. But let's say it's 125 grams of carbs, and let's say you're going to focus on doing that for 1 month, and we're going to see what happens. So I'm going to tell you you're going to gain weight. Okay, you are going to gain weight because you're going to store your sugar again. You're consuming some carbohydrates. So these carbohydrates are sugars. They're complex. They can be complex. Maybe they're simple, but let's say they're complex carbs. And like there's good things, like let's say sweet potatoes and stuff like that, right? Root vegetables, good stuff. And then you're getting these carbs in. Your blood sugar will come up, and then you will store that into the muscle. You should be at the end of a ketogenic diet very insulin sensitive, meaning your body's very ready for any sugars that come into the bloodstream, and it will store those away or shuttle them into the cells to be used for energy production, which you can take advantage of. And with exercise, it works. It works really well to use carbohydrates with exercise. Now, you can exercise on a ketogenic diet, but top level athletes and performance athletes, most of them, the large majority, will tell you, and I can tell you my personal experience, I perform far better with carbohydrates as an energy source when I'm exercising than I do with ketones, and I've used both. But you will gain weight because you will store that sugar into the muscle. When you store sugar into the muscle as glycogen, what's stored with it? We talked about this in the beginning. Water is. So when water is stored with the sugar, you will what? You're going to gain weight, right? You're going to gain weight, and because you're going to store more water. Does that mean you're fatter? No. It just means you're storing water. So just like you lost water the first week or 2 weeks really quickly with the ketogenic diet, maybe it was a little bit slower process for you, but you lose weight quickly because you deplete water real quick. So you're going to gain some back, but you should be exercising, and then you start timing your carbohydrates. Typically, after you exercise is when you're going to eat your carbohydrates. If you're going to be really restricted on your carbohydrates, but you're still eating carbs, the best time to do that is right after you exercise, because you have depleted these stores from your muscles. Your muscles are primed to suck up and take any sugar that increases into the bloodstream, anything that you eat, into the muscle. And it helps with tissue repair. It helps with hormonal signaling. It does a ton of great things for your muscles. So timing your nutrients after exercise is a really good thing to do if you're going to eat carbohydrates. And so, so then you maybe start eating the carbohydrates. You track it for a month and you see what happens. All right, you see how you feel with your exercise, and Then what you can do is if a lot of people will start putting on muscle mass, and what I've seen is a lot of people their body will just start changing. Like they won't even change body weight, but they lose and change inches. And so, you know, I mean, I personally consume during those like the second, the second half of the year when I'm getting ready to transition into, I'll consume 200 to 325 grams of carbohydrates per day to reach for my goals. But I'm actually focusing on actually trying to gain a little bit of weight, like add more muscle. And that might be a different story than what you're trying to do. But, 125, 200 grams of carbohydrates is not unreasonable at all. For a lot of people, for a lot of people, you just depends on the individual, especially when you're exercising, right? So, and then you follow that routine. You add muscle. You shouldn't really drastically change. And if you're really overweight, if you're really obese, and you start exercising and like following some of the suggestions that I've made here, that might be appropriate for you, then you might see some real significant changes in inches, and you might change the way your clothes fit. Some people though they'll just change body composition a bit. Their pants might get a little bit looser. They'll lose inches and whatnot if they have a significant amount of weight to lose. If they're really just kind of leaner and kind of skinny, don't have a lot of muscle mass, then they'll start adding more shape, and they'll have more muscle, but they won't necessarily change their clothing sizes a lot. So it's really, to me, you can really control your weight. You can control what you eat. You can have a diverse diet. If you're looking at your not calorie intake, but really I like to use macronutrients, and you're eating the right types of foods, it almost becomes second nature. But I've just seen a lot of issues lately with people restricting so much, and they may feel better. They may have accomplished some things, but usually I'm seeing people at a point where they're kind of frustrated with it now. They've been on a diet for so long, and they haven't been able to eat. And, there's a lot of, socially, awkward, a lot of people just deal with it and they're okay with it, but they kind of miss out on some of the social interactions because they're so restricted in what they eat, and they feel like this weird, awkward pressure. I get it. I've been there plenty of times, trust me. But the main thing is that, like, listen, don't get hung up on one particular diet. Okay. Don't do that. There's not one ideal diet. I'll kind of give you lay it out for you. So the simplest thing that I typically see people do that are trying to improve their thyroid or dampen autoimmunity is they may remove like one thing, like gluten, from their diet and see how they feel, or they might remove dairy. And sometimes those things are really profound. They make really significant impacts on the way that someone's feeling and functioning, and they do great. The next step up is that they might go on a diet like a paleo diet or something like that, right? Where they remove a lot of the grains, but they still have like paleo by itself. They still have, you can still have nightshades, you can still have nuts and seeds. And then if they step up to like an autoimmune paleo, they remove the nightshades and the nuts and seeds. And then the next step up might be like a ketogenic diet, right? And then like a ketogenic diet with a lot of added like vegetables and fibers to the diet. And it's a bit more, that's even typically a bit more restrictive. And so, and there are some diets that can go beyond that, but those are like the most common ones that we'll see people that have thyroid issues or Hashimoto's. Are trying to dampen the autoimmunity and to see if there's a dietary impact. So the thing to keep in mind here is though that you have to vary the diet. You can't stay with one thing forever. It's just, I don't think it's a good idea. You need diversity in your diet. So we want to use these diets as short-term tools to help kind of reset and get our body as healthy as we can. And then we want to try to eat diverse foods again and reintroduce some things into our diet. That's my opinion. And I think that's what a lot of the science and research is showing us today. And I've just seen so many people lately. It wasn't as big of an issue even that I've been able to, that I've observed even like maybe 2 years ago. I'm seeing it a lot more now, though. People are coming in with all these different diets that they've been following for a prolonged period of time, and they're still not doing well. And there's a lot of cases where it's just like weight loss is completely plateauing. They don't know what to do. If they try to eat carbs at all, they gain weight back, and they don't realize it's just water that they're gaining. There needs to be a strategy for exercise. So those are some of the general concepts that you really need to be familiar with, because everybody's everybody will tout a dietary program, but no one will tell you that you can't stay on it forever. You can't. You should. I don't think you should. That's my opinion. I have like dietary. I have like we have primarily two dietary programs that we take people through, and then I try to really the third step is really encouraging this variation model, this model of variation, like teach you the basics, the good foods to eat, figure out what you can and can't eat through eliminating foods typically, or through testing is always the best if you can do that. But eliminating foods works pretty well, and eating nutrient dense diet, that's a good way to start. And if you can get systemically healthier and start feeling better, then you can start toying with some of these things I'm talking about, like varying the diet more. You want to go into ketosis as a strategy to lose weight, that might be a really good idea. But you've got to say, all right, look, and I'm going to lose weight. Understand that I'm going to have to come out of this though, because I can't stay here forever. And what's your strategy out, right? So I like to look at it from a 1 year period. It's just easier for me to do that. It makes sense from a my goals, but the perspective of my goals, like what am I trying to accomplish with my physical, with my body, like how am I trying to change it? What am I trying to do? And just makes it so much more enjoyable to have variety, and to be able to not be extremely restricted. And everyone, you have to take every person individually. You really do. But I see a lot of people that do extremely well following the recommendations and some of these ideas and things we've discussed. So I just want to share that because I think a lot of people are dealing with these problems and have, really no one's shared these concepts, which are really important. And quite frankly, I don't think a lot of doctors or people that give you diets, period, a lot of them, it's not beneficial to their business model, for one thing, because their diet, if you keep doing their diet and you keep buying their stuff, then they keep making money, right? So it doesn't go well with their business model to tell you not to keep doing their diet forever. The other thing is, I think a lot of people don't understand this. This is something that I'm seeing a lot more. A lot of people have no idea about varying the diet and about the idea of periodization. I've talked about this a little bit before, but my background before I started studying functional medicine was in strength and conditioning. I was a certified strength and conditioning specialist in like 2006. And before that, I was a certified personal trainer through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. I mean, these are really respectable organizations that have high standards, very difficult testing. And that's because that's the stuff that I loved to do. Since I was 12, I was studying exercise, I was studying fitness, I was studying supplementation, nutritional supplements, like at 12. And I loved it because I was fascinated by it. I was fascinated by the possibility of changing my scrawny, skinny body into something else. And to run faster and to compete and to be more athletic, right? So I was really fascinated with that. And I had a cousin who was a personal trainer at the time. I was 12, he was probably 19. And he was a personal trainer at like Gold's Gym or something. So I'm 42. So that was a while back, when I was 12, 30 years ago. And I remember I had this little weight set in my parents' basement, this little weight set they got me. I think I got it for Christmas. And he wrote this workout for me. And it was like, I remember he wrote like, it was like the first time I understood like how to actually like exercise, with weights anyway. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. I started reading all these magazines and stuff. And, I have seen a lot of the dietary trends. I mean, I understand pretty well a lot of the strategies that people use for like bodybuilding and stuff like that. But then I understand the stuff that for general health, and the stuff that really focuses on helping sick people to try and improve their health and get back to feeling good again and get back into, just back to themselves and not be focused on being sick and worried about or preoccupied by a diagnosis that is affecting everything that they do. So I've just had a lot of insight there. So this is a lot of this stuff. People just, I mean, most doctors aren't aware of the need to vary the diet. They're not. But I think that's going to change. I think it's going to change. There's we learn as we go. But some exciting stuff is happening. So a lot of research and interest in trying to figure out how to improve our health is being done. There's research being done like crazy. So I'm excited about the future. But I want to share this with you guys. I know it's quite a bit of rambling and kind of trying to weave topics together. So hopefully it made some sense. But it's really important to understand that you need diversity in your diet. And it's one of the new challenges that I'm faced with in practice today is trying to add things back in and help people to regain their oral tolerance so that they can eat foods and not have a reaction to it, right? And a lot of that has to do with getting the digestive tract as healthy as possible, getting the gut recolonized with a good, diverse bacterial balance. Those are all really, really important things. And it's not as simple as just taking a probiotic. Those probiotics will not seed the gut. They won't do it. Your food and the fibers that you eat do fantastic job. Okay. So anyway, I hope this helps you guys out. Now it is 10:35 past bedtime. But tomorrow's Friday, so I have a little bit later start. Little bit. My kids will probably be up at the same time like clockwork. So I got to go to bed, and you guys should too. But I hope this is helpful. And I do appreciate you guys. I hope y'all are doing well. Thanks for all the comments. Sorry, guys, I didn't get a chance to look. But hey, Rachel and Misty, Jody, Raquel. Is that Pleska? I hope I'm not pronouncing that wrong. Sorry if I am. Hey, Jody. Hey, Joanne. Alyssa. Rachel. Sean. Let's see. Debbie, Karen. Sonia, Stacy. So yeah, thank you guys. And if you've commented, a lot of times there'll be comments on other channels. I just can't see it. This only lets me see primarily Facebook. So if you're on YouTube or you're somewhere another channel that we're streaming to, sorry about that. But I'll try to respond to your comments if you'll leave some for me. But I do appreciate you guys. Hope you all have a good night. If you have questions or comments, please post them here. Oh, and don't forget, if you want to join us for the Transformation Challenge, it closes Sunday, and we have that basically takes people through the dietary recommendations that I suggest for people that have thyroid issues, autoimmunity, and we go through the lifestyle recommendations and even the supplementation that I would typically use. We have really tried to put together a great program that's just absolutely world class for literally $1. Like literally $1, no catch at all. You can get like an extra guidebook when you're purchasing that program. You can get an extra dietary meal plan, 4-week meal plan that's like $10 if you want it, but it's optional. And then you can also get a discount on your supplementation that we recommend. You buy just about any supplements at a 20% discount, and that's $9.99, and that's a monthly thing if you want it, but you can cancel it any time, and it's completely optional. So anyway, just want to mention to you guys, if you're thinking about making some dietary changes, this is actually the perfect time of year, because think about it, August, September, middle of September, it's a 6-week challenge that we have. You'd be like mid-September, no holidays really. Nothing that should really interfere with it typically. Typically kids are going back to school, so routine begins. It's easier kind of to organize things. So it's a perfect time of year to set up the second half of your year if you wanted to join us. But you have access to our smaller Facebook group and really our membership site where you get access to the modules that I've put together. And so if you're interested in that, just go to thyroidprogram.com and you can learn about it. But the registration will close Sunday night. But I do appreciate y'all. Hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful night. And hopefully I'll talk to you again very soon.